Hello, welcome to live stream. Nice to see you nice. It's still, if you're from America and watching, then you'll still realize that we haven't changed. I don't think we change till next weekend, the time zone. So how are you all now? Good, I hope. I look like I'm in the jungle with my trees behind me. It's quite cool, eh? I'm in the jungle. Yes, I should make this a little smaller so it doesn't create so much spinning. So welcome. So if this is the first time on live stream, I will just tell you some of the way things work. So I do a little bit of a meditation for the first 15 minutes. You're welcome to join me in that. And then after that, I do, after the meditation, I do a bit of an introduction, and then I do questions and answers from about 7 p.m. French time onwards. So yeah, if you want to call in, I take mostly calls now, please put call me, and don't put anything else after it so I can see it in the chat bar on Skype. So put call me. So if you want to meditate, then there's different practices you could do, but know when you do them that all of them are happening. They're not something that I'm actually prescribing to you. Whether you do them or don't do them is life's will. It's not your will. So the first meditation is the mindfulness of breathing. The mindfulness of breathing is a very simple Buddhist exercise. It's basically you count every time you breathe in up to 10, and then when you get to 10, you go back to the beginning again. So you count 1, breathe in, then 2, 3, all the way up to 10, and then back to 0 again. The other one is putting your attention in the I am. So every time you feel yourself drifting off into thoughts, you move back to the I am. And then the third one is just letting yourself do anything you want. So just letting your mind think about anything, just sitting there with your eyes closed. And know that this isn't about you becoming enlightened, because who would become enlightened? And who is it that's doing it? But yet it arises. Just like the sky arises, the sounds arise, my voice arises, your computer arises, it arises. Oh yeah. Oh yes, I've got to do my bong. 1 second before we begin, we have a bong that goes off. The bonging bell, the bonging meditation bell. And when it finishes, there'll be another bong. The donging, bonging bell. Hello. I had to turn the volume off because Khaleesi was making a bit of noise. So hello, good evening. It's funny shadows, isn't it, behind me? Okay, so what is the title of the talk today? It's something about free will. I remember that. March. Do I have free will? I think it is. Do I have free will? I think I've most probably answered that question. Not answered that question, but had that title before. When you've been doing this for so many years, like you sometimes repeat titles. Hello, hello. Do you have free will? The question isn't do you have free will, it's do you have free will? It's who is the I that has or hasn't got free will? So who is this person that you believe has the ability to choose to be sitting here, or to walk out this room, or to go and sit in the other room, or I can't think of things to do, go and have pop. We don't actually call it pop in England. That's an American thing, I think. We actually call it fizzy drink. Okay, so chocolate, whatever. So who is this one that chooses to do things? I'm not being very inventive tonight with choosing the things. So who is this one that chooses to do things? Like, so that's the question. Like, who are you? Who is it that's in these bodies? Who is it that's in there? So what we do most of our life is we have the feeling, even though it's not conscious, that we are people existing inside these bodies. And then as soon as that happens, then there's like these tentacles that come out that claim everything. So it claims, I am the chooser, I am the doer, I am the speaker, I am the hearer, I am the seer, I am the runner, I am the sitter, I am everything. Me, 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 me. But who is that? Who? So when we were born, we aren't anybody, but yet there is this alive presence that's experiencing. There is this beingness, this way of being that, or this aliveness that is there. And then as the baby begins to age, there begins to be this contraction and this holding onto things in which it is. So prior to the baby having any sense of who it was simply was. There was this alive presence, and there wasn't even anyone that knew the alive presence. It just was alive, radical presence. And then the baby began to claim, this is my hand, this is my face, this is my hair, this is my clothes, this is my body, this is my chair, this is my dog. And it slowly grew. These are my behaviors, these are my ways of being. And then it identifies with this character. And this character has relevance to functioning in society. So there is like some functioning of this character appearing. But because there is this identification solely with the person, then there's something else that's missed that begins to be hidden. And then there becomes suffering when you get lost in the person. And what that is the beingness that was there prior to identification. So right now, you aren't anything. There is seemingly a character that is things, that's rich, poor, nice, not nice. And then there is this beingness which is bigger than it all. And that beingness is not a thing. It doesn't go in time. It's not a thing. It's not something you can claim and say, oh, beingness looks like this, or beingness looks like that, or aliveness looks like this or that. It's not something you can grab hold of. It is right here. It's experiencing itself, and it's present, but it's not separate from itself. So the experiencer and the experienced are one and the same thing. The feeling and the felt are one and the same thing. And when that's forgotten and you're just identified with the person, then suffering begins, because what happens is you're looking for that freedom of who you are in the person. So you're looking for it in behaviors. Maybe you're looking for it in becoming enlightened. Maybe you're looking for it in having a bigger house, in living in a particular country, in going shopping. I don't know, whatever it is. Hang on, just let me make sure my microphone and everything is working. Hello? Yes, it is. I suddenly got insecure. I'd kept the microphone off. So this momentum, this seeking energy is looking for freedom in time. And there's never freedom in time. There's only ever freedom in what is, in what's happening right now, right here. It's so close to us. It's love. And it's not in fixing your dynamics. It's not in psychology. It's not in fixing the chakras. Even though all of that's a great thing to do, it's always nicer to be kinder to your environment through picking up your own shit. But that's not it. Like the dynamics will go on with that body. So if you have fear when you see a dog, that's part of the karma of that body. It's the knowing of who you are that's the freedom. It's the energetic movement to who you are beyond that. And that's something that arises in this. And there's nothing wrong with dynamics. They're part of being human. I got into this subject the opposite way round from most people. So most people, they first off start with like years and years of therapy, of understanding themselves, their family dynamics. So maybe when they first start getting depressed, they go to therapy or something. Whereas I did go to therapy when I was younger as well, but I got into this at such a young age that my character really hadn't formed. It was still in formation or something, and there was still a lot that needed to be sorted out, and a lot got sorted out with non-duality. But it's not that. Like I still have issues, and I suspect other teachers still have issues, but maybe they don't even call them issues. That's part of being human. Like for you're human to be afraid when your partner speaks a certain way, that's totally normal. There's nothing wrong with that. But in that, there's also a freedom. So your person is getting triggered by your partner, and then there is a freedom that's behind that or all around that. What happens when we're identified with the person solely? We're always looking for it in the future. So we're looking for it in the other behaving a certain way. It doesn't mean that we don't request that, but it's not your freedom, them behaving a certain way, or you having a particular relationship, or you not having fear. That's part of this thing called being human. But then there's something beyond that that's totally and utterly free. And what's so disappointing to most seekers is that they don't become enlightened, like the person doesn't become enlightened, because a lot of teachers imply that you are going to become a super person. And even myself, I'm sure, like, imply that as well. And it does change the person, but the person is still the person. And that's not the point. And that's so disappointing to the person, because the person always wants things for itself. It's like, I want to be the best sort of person I can be. I want to be loved by everyone. I want to be all powerful and never vulnerable again. I want to never make a mistake. And to me, that is the lie of enlightenment. Although I'm open to it being possible, and I just haven't realized it as well. Like that hasn't happened here, that my person hasn't become enlightened. So I'm open to that. Like, we never know. To me, it's this movement back. There's another energetic thing happens that's a movement back or forwards to something that you always are in every moment. And in me, there can be old dynamics that arise, and there's always the openness to change them. But I also see that, like, our conditions of these bodies are really strong. And if you believe it's about the conditions of the body becoming a certain way, then the seeking will emerge and then try to make you a perfect person. And there will be seeking about that. And I can actually have old, what I would call seeking patterns. So old ways of being in which I sought. So, you know, yeah, as well. But then there's this other radical freedom that's bubbling in the background, that's here all around us, that doesn't care if your person is good or bad, or the other is good or bad, or right or wrong, or needs to do this or needs to do that, or get this or get that. It's totally free, experiencing itself. Alive, present, radical, expanded, juicy, love. And that's only here. That is this moment, that is what's experiencing. And then the character's experiences of feelings and thoughts are coming and going in this, but that doesn't make a solid entity with free will. There's an appearance of free will, so it appears like you can choose an orange over an apple, but it doesn't actually make someone that does. So you can have memories about when you were 12 years old, when you picked to go on a roller coaster and you hurt your knee, but that's simply memories. What happens with identification is all of that gets brought into a bundle, and that becomes you, your life and your choice, and you're sort of working through life. You're going through life, whereas actually you're always here and life is going through you. It's the other way around, or life is you, if you want to get very poetic about it. But the person believes that it's moving through time and it's moving through this world, whereas that's never your actual experience. Your experience is there is everything, and that is coming and going in who you are. And that's free. And everything about your person is totally divine and allowed and good and beautiful. Every part of it. And I can notice over the years since that big awakening, there's still this relaxing into being an imperfect, perfect human. All of it's okay. All of it, every part. Because there's never anybody here that chooses to be any of it. You can either look at it through time, that it comes from karma, or you can look at it from this moment, and it's simply appearing. It's simply appearing out of spaciousness. Okay, we can start taking some questions now. I have to get my sunglasses on to look past this light. So if you want to, so you can contact me through Skype. My Skype address is lisacairns12. And then just if you want to call me, then put call me, so I can see it in the chat. Okay, so we got Eric, he wants to call in. I just have to see what he's written so far. Oh. Oh no. I'm not sure, Eric. Okay, we can give you a go. Yeah, I'm not sure, Eric. That's the no. So Eric's questions are: the non-dual truth pointing is what point to what is up. How did you get an audience? I would like my own audience. I want to have a beer. Rip that one. I'm just going to put that's not the right questions. Like, sorry to be picky, but I can't be bothered with that. Like, if you asked it, how did you get an audience because you were interested just in my story, but not because you want advice, of how to grow a business or get an audience or something. So if someone else wants to ask that question in a different way, that's okay. Hi Lisa, I'm watching your live stream and may want to talk via Skype. Great. Hey, Bia. Hi Lisa, could you please say something about the Anya chakra? Is it the third eye, and what is it like to look through the third eye? How is it different from sensory eye? Does every guru have to have an activated third eye? Is the third eye activated at the moment of awakening, enlightenment, awareness, or the true essence, or whatever we call it? Thank you. Hi Oedipus. Could you say something about, I don't know what Anya chakra is. I know the third eye chakra, which is here. And I've never studied chakras really that much traditionally. Like, so I had a friend asking me about these energies that arise when this happens in the chakras and this happens. I actually got into speaking about chakras just from my own experience of learning about my body and what I feel and what I think. And like paying attention to my body, and also from learning Chinese medicine as well, and shiatsu, and also a bit of Ayurvedic medicine as well. You kind of end up doing these types of things. And also my teacher taught me to massage my body to release stories from my body. And so this also connected, like I'd be massaging acupressure points which relate to chakras. So that's all I really know. To me, awakening wasn't about the chakras. So some people have awakenings that are about the chakras and kundalini arising. And that wasn't what my awakening was like. My awakening was this expansion back into what it is now. And in that, it healed certain elements of my chakras. So it changed certain elements of my chakras. Yeah, they still go in and out. So sometimes they're open and sometimes they're closed. Sometimes they're more present, sometimes they're less present. But to me, they're just a functioning that happens, and it helps the body navigate itself. So with me, the third eye is like complex thinking, the positive. It's like imagination. It's the ability to see others, like to see, others. And in its negative, it's overthinking, compulsive thinking, and maybe inability to see others as well. Or to see time, to see future, to see past. It's all that type of thing. It's like goes into past and future. It's really amazing, the third eye. But I don't think I get any special downloads from it that I've noticed, that I know about. Yes, it's different from the sensory eye. It's not the same as the sensory eye, as those eyes. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Oedipus. It is also, how did you get your audience? Do you want to chat about that on the phone then, Eric, if that's your question? If you want to, Eric, then you can call and we can chat about that. I always prefer calling. Well, not always. At the moment, I prefer calling. Okay, Christian says, call me. Okay, let's go, Christian. Christian.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey.
Hey. Wait, let me just switch my YouTube. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, brilliant.
And everyone else can
Yes.
hear you too.
Yeah, I gathered. Yeah, I don't know whether you can recall me calling back about 4 weeks ago.
I recognize your voice.
I was a frustrated seeker.
No, I don't remember.
I think I projected some of my frustration onto you after I listened back to myself. I thought, yes, there's an agitated soul there.
I can't remember. I recognize your voice, but I can't remember our conversation.
Yeah, no, it was probably, I think I was kind of just querying in terms of, with so many paths and so many methods, and there doesn't seem to be an outright superior method. Otherwise, we'd all be flocking to it. And there's just so many schemes, methods, sharings, and whatnot. And for the seeker, they're kind of always, it can be a confusing picture.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, totally. I get that.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of, I was patient. Other type of practices, because I've only really come onto the scene, onto the non-dual scene over the past few months.
Okay.
And, from observing and listening to speakers, there seems to be a divergence in opinion when it comes to meditation. There are some kind of a small percentage who say that all practices are futile and they're just transmitting their sharings and hoping that it lands and then for instant awakening. That's what it seems. But for me, meditation, I started with Vipassana a year ago, and I was doing this noting method, and it seemed to throw a spanner in the works of my thought and the self machine, whatever you want to call it, and the machine.
Yeah.
And that I progressed on to learning traditional Advaita Vedanta.
Yeah.
And then I did a bit of mantra meditation, but I don't know, it seems to have all had an accumulative effect. Now I'm doing self-inquiry, the Ramana Maharshi, and that seems to have having an impact.
Yeah.
What's
I'm
your
sorry. I'm sorry.
meditation?
Just
Prime
to
the mind. Just good.
yeah.
It's like it helps to purify a mind.
Yeah, just to inform you that it's really cutting up and really breaking out. I don't know if that's breaking out. It's really like breaking up the audio. I don't know if that's your end or my end. Hello?
Well, let me, in fact, let me just switch it from Wi-Fi to 4G, because I think that's the problem. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
So was that whole of that last monologue of mine, was that all muffled?
No, it wasn't all muffled. It sort of like went in and out, and then it began to get quite roboty towards the end. But basically, you talked about doing Vipassana and then like the progression, and now doing the Ramana Maharshi. And then the last question I just missed. I think it was like, what you?
Yeah, from a non-dual perspective, do you find that there is value in meditation and some of these practices?
I don't think that I really look at life like that anymore. Like what's valuable and what's not. Like for myself, I do have routines in which which I think keep the person like energetically balanced. So I have my routine, like I get up in the morning, I do some breathing exercises. I walk the dog. I don't wear shoes all the time when I walk the dog, so I think it's good to be barefooted on the ground.
Oh, wow.
And I listen to like some particular musics that I find very expansive, and then I start my day after that. I'll have a shower and then I start my day, and I find all of that like really good for the body-mind mechanism. But I don't look at any of it like an arrival for somebody to get somewhere. Like, it's my routine and it's what I do, and I notice that it's nice for my body and my body really likes that, just like eating particular foods it really enjoys and it's attracted towards that. And so that's what I go for. And I don't really have thoughts around what will bring me to enlightenment or what will bring someone else to enlightenment, because I don't really see somebody that can become enlightened. And that dynamic, that structure in which you're trying to get to become enlightened, doesn't really exist as a whole. So I'm not opposed to practices, even though there's not really somebody there that's choosing to do it or not doing it. But it's just that this idea that there is a solid entity that's inside the body that is going to get to enlightenment through doing these practices is a fantasy. In every moment, there is karma of the body arising and disappearing. And that doesn't need to be negative. It can be negative or positive. You can be in negative karma or positive karma. And that karma is orchestrating the movements of the body. And for some people, they're identified with their karma, and some people they aren't. And when you're not identified with your karma, it changes your karma to an extent, but it doesn't stop karma. Like, there has to be karma. I see karma as cause and effect in order for this apparent world to happen. But it doesn't, like, it's not that karma that becomes enlightened. And it's that karma that people hold on to and believe is them that's going somewhere to get something. So it's a movement back from that. It's a movement away from seeing that who you are is this alive presence in which that karma is appearing in. So right now, there is a freedom already here. There is this experiencing which isn't limited. Your experiencing isn't limited inside your body. And you think that it's you that will learn that or unlearn that. But who is this you? When I'm speaking to you now, I'm not actually speaking to that you, because that you doesn't exist as an entity that can hear something. It's the you, the illusory you, is thoughts and impulses that are arising. The listening is actually consciousness which is beyond that. So that which is listening to me now, that which is hearing this, is consciousness which isn't actually separate from the sounds of my voice. But in that, there plays a person which then plays in front and then owns all these things, owns the consciousness, owns the karma, owns your thoughts, and then says, it's me that's listening to Lisa. And if I get into this subject more, if I do certain practices, then I can imagine myself free in a future time. But who is this you? I'm not opposed to practices. That's really not what I'm saying. If practices arise, that's beautiful. But who is this person that's going to get enlightened? When the character is really dense and when the karma is really dense, then like my speculation, although this isn't always the case because you always get exceptions, is that there's so much focus on that suffering that it's like dense clouds in front of the sun. And so as the person like becomes looser, then it's more chance to see the sun through the clouds. But it's not about that person or that karma totally disappearing, because that karma can't disappear, otherwise the body would die. But if the person's got like really deluded thinking and really like abnormal thinking, then it becomes like very dense, that bundle of that person. but it can become thinner, it can become more balanced. Like if you imagine somebody that's really suffering, like normally when they're really suffering, they're very focused on themselves. So me, time, fear, fear. And so what there can be a loosening on that. Like that seems to happen in most cases, and that seems logical that needs to happen. Like if there's really dense focus on that suffering, it needs to loosen up a bit. But it's not that karmic energy which wakes up. It's beyond that. But that's not always the case of what I said about that really dense energy, because there's examples of teachers like Byron Katie and Eckhart Tolle who were suffering immensely, and then there was just some pop that happened.
Yeah.
So that's not always the case, but that seems to be what happens for a lot of people, is that they get into this subject and then they calm themselves down, because when someone's identified, they have lots of neurotic thinking. You know, they think lots of false thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, so their karma and their way of being gets into very complex thinking or complex dynamics with people. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, no, I agree with a large part of what you said.
And what happens in your body when I say it? Like, does your body respond in some way?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it responds, but I'd say that I don't know, there is some kind of metamorphosis taking place within me at the moment. I can't explain it, but
Yeah.
as I said, there's things that, let's say, the storyteller goes completely offline at times.
Yeah, nice.
Lisa, for example, when I look at nature, for some reason when I go outside and I just look at trees and look at the skies, for some reason the stillness and the harmony that's in nature, that's intrinsically in nature, it's reflected in me. You know, it reflects the harmony within me.
Yeah.
And then my storyteller goes offline. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, I've got a very intuitive strategy at the moment. So I'm just, anything that brings the thought machine to a halt, to a grinding halt.
Yeah.
And you know, listening to you, that there's been a few things that you said that have stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
For some reason, Ramana Maharshi, when I fix my eyes onto his, and I didn't know about Ramana Maharshi until about 6 months ago, and I've been practicing the self-inquiry method, and that seems to, you know, certainly softening. You know, it seems to. I don't know. The action hero seems to go offline from time to time.
Nice. Yeah.
So
yeah, and then there's
I'm
just this moment and just the wonder of this moment, which is
absolutely,
beautiful.
which is beautiful. So there seems to be a little bit of a tug of war happening inside of me at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's the way for a lot of seekers, is that you expand, so you get so there is more of an identification with that which you are, and then when you expand, the person feels more balanced and feels more happy, and then you contract, and then the person feels very unhappy and very disconnected. So there's this opening and closing which happens, which affects the person.
Yeah.
And it kind of creates like a schizophrenic effect. Like one day you're happy with everything, and then the next day it's all not good. You got somewhere and then not got somewhere. And then it's also seeing that both of those are untrue. And all we ever have is this moment, and that is the truth. This moment is the truth, and this moment is mysterious and unknowable. The other thing that I would say to you, just for something to explore if it comes up, is like exploring also, you know, this from what you did in Vipassana, like the body sensations. Like when I said to you, how does that make you feel in the body? I asked you twice. I think I asked you twice. I think I asked you how it made you feel, first of all, and then I asked how it made you feel in the body. And both times you didn't answer me. So that's just a suggestion for you, not saying that that you don't know what you're feeling in your body. It's just a suggestion of something that you can explore, is putting attention into the body and exploring what the body's saying, because there's also this the mind and the body like a one and the same thing, and there can be identification with the mind and thoughts, and there can be identification with the emotions, and sometimes spiritual seekers are just going for the thoughts rather than the feelings as well. So they're beginning to see that the thoughts aren't true.
Yeah.
but they're not
Yeah.
really seeing that the feelings aren't true, and they're not really understanding the depth of feeling in the body. Because what's happened for most of people's lives is that they've always been listening to their mind. So the way my teacher described it to me was that he would say, like, the mind lies, but the body doesn't. So if, like what used to happen to me, I suppose, is that I would want peace and harmony. So I would be being nice about something, but underneath I would be feeling anger in my body and frustration in my body. So I would be, but I wouldn't know that I felt anger and frustration necessarily. So I would be focused on wanting there to be niceness and peace in the conversation. And then I wouldn't know that there was this other story happening. And it's not that the anger actually and frustration is the truth. That's just a layer because you've been denying your anger and frustration maybe. So then maybe there's something deeper than the anger and frustration. But it's like an indicator, like it's like a light for you to look at, like a beacon for you to look at. And you can go deeper, and then you begin to get more into being an authentic human being. Because when you've been identified with the story of who you want to be. And then you've got the reality of who you are. Like, you've got that child in the playground that's really vulnerable, and you've got the reality of what you are in this life. And then you've got the idea of what your parents want, what society wants, what others want.
No, absolutely. I think you bang on the button with the body sensation, but I do tend to neglect the body. Only, but recently, I'll tell you, Lisa. So since I've adopted two like approaches to my body sensations, because I've got this strange heat sensation, and I've got anxiety in certain areas of the body, in certain tension spots. The throat, the chest. Classically where anxiety is always situated. But I tend to like. There's one approach which is more analytical, so I'll just identify with the space of awareness, and then I'll just see that I am not this sensation. My true essence is not this sensation. And how, if awareness is analogous to space, then how can space suffer? So I kind of tell myself, and that sometimes kind of takes off the edge of the sensation, but then also I go towards the sensation. So I'll meet the sensation, and I'll treat it like I'll give these areas of my body's actually childish names, like Mr. Throaty, Mr. Chesty. I'll invite them and I'll say, you're something stupid like that, but you're welcome. Feel free, make yourself at home, so I don't get identified with it. So I don't resist, because I think resistance does certainly increase the intensity of the sensation you're experiencing. But no, that is helping, and I feel that more and more I do it, the less and less it's having an impact on me.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and another thing, a good thing to do with coming more in contact with the body is massage. Like I was really fortunate at the time when I was doing this. I had a hot tub with like these massage seats, and I also had like a massage seat. You can get it really cheap in England for like £40, like this shiatsu massage seat off Amazon. I can't remember the name of the make. And they used to do a lot of massage, and I used to find that helped shift a lot of energy in my body and a lot of feelings in my body.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, yeah, no, I'll definitely inquire into that. I guess the question I did want to ask you, Lisa, like back to what I talked about non-duality, because so many speakers say so many different things, and obviously, they say that there's no longer no me. There's me has vanished or is dissolved, and if they are channeling like pure being, pure awareness, whatever you want to call it, that the words are coming from a deeper space. I'm wondering, shouldn't there be a consensus around kind of, particularly the experience and I guess, the practices and the methods to reach, or not to reach, let's say, to, for the self to drop away. I mean, that's where there's confusion. That's where a confusion lies for me. Shouldn't there be a consensus, particularly at that level, where if all these separate me's have dissolved?
That would be really nice. Yeah, that would be really nice for logic and reason.
Does that mean that beingness is in conflict with itself? If it's all been channeled from all these different beings, that pure awareness is actually in conflict with itself, because they're all saying very different things?
No, totally not. It means that logic and reason cannot even begin to touch the mystery of this life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I
intellect.
know.
So it's like so to me, every speaker. So to me, the way that life works is that pure beingness is animating this. So
Mm-hmm.
aliveness or presence is animating this. So it's animating my body, is animating your body, and then it comes through characters. So if you've got a character that's come from particular teachers, then you'll notice that they tend to have that flavor. They don't suddenly start speaking about something really differently or speaking in Japanese. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's that influence. It tends to be what they came from and the flavor in which they speak.
Yeah.
Like if I'd been brought up in Christianity and had this awakening, I'm sure it would be very different the way in which I speak. But I came through learning about this from non-duality and particular teachers and particular influences. And then over the 10 years, I've began to find more of a like unique Lisa way of expressing this. So, but it's not actually the character that's speaking. The character is something that comes and goes. What's speaking now is pure beingness, but it comes through a character. And this character right now is called Lisa, and she speaks English, and she was brought up in the United Kingdom, and she loves tea, but is not allowed tea, like English tea, because it hurts her tummy if she drinks too much tea. Oh, I love it, a cup of tea. And she, like, I have particular ways of being, and I have particular ways of expressing this. So this character is here, and it's colouring this expression. And that's the same for every teacher. And my qualm sometimes with non-duality, but I also think it's absolutely perfect, is that people get the impression that teachers no longer have a character because of the different ways in which people speak. So they will say there is no self. So I tend not to say there is no self anymore, because it doesn't really feel like that. It feels like there is a character that comes and goes, but it also feels like this spaciousness is speaking. But I tend not to say no self, but I don't disagree with that teaching. I really like that teaching as well. But they still speak through a character. So their character is not suddenly completely transforming into a different character. They speak in their particular way of being. And that, I think, like, is sometimes very confusing to the person, because the person begins to get into their imagination that everyone that's speaking non-duality is like this blank void that has no character, has no emotions, has no karma, has no quirks. And to me, that's completely untrue. So
Yeah, no, I completely get that. So I completely understand. And I would expect there to be differences in style, delivery, character, personality, and all those things. Absolutely. It's just when they differ on like methods and practices, like there'll be some who will say that self-inquiry, no, it's just a waste of time. It's completely futile.
Yeah.
And then you'll get others that say, no, that's their method. And if it's all been channeled from this pure being, then that's where I struggle.
Yeah, but it's so in them there is this realization of pure beingness. It's not even in them. There is just this movement to pure beingness. So that is like an energetic shift, but it's still, the body is speaking with its particular information to date. So it's not like when you get awakening that the character gets a download of information how to speak about this. Like, to me, when I had my awakening, I just thought none of the teachings even begin to remotely touch this. Like, it was so mind-blowing. And then inside of myself, there was a little bit of an internal battle about what teachings were right. The thing that felt the most true to me was there was an energetic expansion that happened. So that's what, like, if I were to put it into words, it was like an energetic expansion. And then, like, the word emptiness and fullness felt like they had truth in it, but it really didn't come with a download of information. It's like I don't know how somebody gets to this. Like, it doesn't. I can talk about my particular story and I can talk about what resonates here, but I don't know that. I know that there is this. I can remember Lisa's path, and I can talk about other teachers I've heard and things that make sense. But in the end, like, if we come to the perspective of presence, of non-duality, Non-duality is silent without any words. It's just here. And everything else is kind of speculation. And teachers are kind of trying to point to that which is beyond words, but they can never really get it with words because it's totally silent and present and here. So it is this great contradiction that's happening, like with all the different speakers. And there's like, I've been watching, or I watched a few weeks ago, this argument, not argument, it was like debate between two different teachers, and it's so interesting to listen, like how they don't agree, and also be at absolute peace with that. Like to know that that's absolutely possible, that there can be different perspectives on it, but yet a deep, radical knowing of non-duality, of no self. It could also be that the teachers have different experiences. Like it could also be that people are talking about different things. From my perspective, that's all okay. Like there's a absolute commitment and like conviction in what's being spoken about beyond the person here. So that's okay if everyone's like, if I find out that lots of other teachers have a different experience of non-duality to what I do, but I'm also okay with all of us having the same experience and all speaking about it in different ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was a nice story, as you said, two non-duality teachers coming together, and they were still completely at peace, and and at the same time they had differing views. I guess it would be nice if people were willing to upgrade their views as well. Be open to new information, and that's a sign of humility to say that you can be persuaded if new information and better argument an argument is presented. But,
Totally. That is beautiful. And I do see that on the human level, like its capacity is to infinitely evolve. So we could infinitely evolve the way in which we speak about this, and we can infinitely evolve our karma. Everybody. So on the human level, which I think is kind of love and reflects the love of this, like there's never a rival. There's never an end. And there's also never a beginning as well, but it's like infinite. I remember when I was in India, maybe you've heard me say this before, I say it often, me and my partner were walking and we met a sadhu, and the sadhu, I just never thought of that before. The sadhu said, knowledge is infinite. And I just thought that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, of course, yeah, and it's the same with the way in which we can speak about this, and the realizations on the human level are infinite. That which is experiencing is unquestionable to me. Like that is beyond language. Non-duality is beyond all of it, and it just is here. But everything that's appearing within the dream has got the propensity to expand. It's very humbling.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and I got your earlier point as well when you said about it's not about attaining anything. I understand we are the destination we are looking for, but there's a veil of ignorance, or there's a that's I completely agree with that. There's nothing to find. I guess ultimately, Lisa, would you say that it does come down to, I mean, in the non-dual they call it resonance, but I would say that's almost synonymous with grace, but it does come down to grace, that when the separate self falls away, that it's down to God's will, if you believe in God, but everything is happening in accordance with God's will, and whatever shall happen.
I totally agree with that. Like it's all God's will.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, it's been lovely.
Yeah, thank you for calling. When you called, it was really nice because you've got an Om picture, like the Om pulsed. You know how, like, maybe you have to look at that in Skype next. The picture pulsed.
I love how you pronounce Om picture than Om.
Yeah. So it was like black background with, and then this red Om pulsing. It was very nice.
Yeah, cool. My Oms are becoming longer and longer each time. I'm like, don't know, for some reason, like my inhalations are becoming longer and longer now, so I can can go for a good 40, 50 seconds. I haven't even been practice any breath work, but for some reason my yeah, we'll have to have an contest.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Oh, thank you for calling back. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's lovely to speak to you. I'll call again.
Nice. Thank you.
Oh, take care. Have a lovely evening.
And you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was nice. Sorry, I'm going too close to the camera, aren't I? Making it all blurry. Big head. Oh, I can't see it. It's like I remember when I was younger, I went to a talk of the Dalai Lama, and it was so cute because he had a baseball cap on because of all the lights on the stage. It was a massive stadium, and we were right at the back. We had to have binoculars to see him. And I think actually there was also a TV. I don't think we had binoculars. It was quite a long time ago. And he had a baseball cap on to shade himself from the lights. It was so sweet. He's all in his robe and then a red baseball cap. But I'm going to have to go for a toilet break. My apologies. You can't control the bladder. Well, you can actually. Is that your tummy, you see? Is that your tummy? When I began the talk, I realised that I didn't have my earrings in, and I was like, that's so strange to have my earrings in this morning. And then I just found them in the bathroom. I've just automatically taken them off when I went for a toilet. You know, as you do, just in case they affect you while you're doing your business. Okay. So Dr. Elango wants to be called, but Elango, I won't call you tonight because you've been called the last couple of weeks. So if you want to put call me, then I will take your call. So you have to put call me. And then nothing else after call me. Thomas says, that was a brilliant caller. Dalai Lama is just the best. Such a pure being. Oh, it's so cute with his baseball cap on. I really get it. Like with this, I need like a baseball cap to see the screen. There's the light. Okay, so we will go to, yes. We go to Kosistanian. It's a long name, Kosistanian. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Okay.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Could I just ask how I pronounce your name? Costanian? Costanian?
Konstantin.
Constantian. Okay, Constantian. Nice.
Yes.
Hello,
Usually it's
welcome.
just Kostya.
Oh, just Costa.
Yeah.
Oh, that's easier. Costa. Yeah, nice. And welcome, Costa. How can I help you or not help you today?
It's not that I have a question. It's more like I'd like some interaction with you. I mean, I've been watching talks like that and reading this stuff, and there is all the knowledge and mental understanding about I need this shift in consciousness, and I thought this direct interaction could
do something.
Help.
I could get out my machine gun and blast away any self left. This is the thing. Is that this is another idea, and that's okay because that created this interaction. Like it's nothing wrong with that. But there's an idea that there's you that needs to get to something, and then there's a belief in that. But it's not conscious, that belief in that. So it just feels real, like it feels in this moment that there is a you that is suffering in time, or there is a you that is identified in time, and there needs to be a no you in the future moments. And this is the difficulty of non-duality, because none of that's true. What you are right now is here and present and alive and vibrant, and that is stories which seemingly appear, but it's our grasping onto them that makes them seem true. So there is a thought, there is an impulse of you appearing now, and then beyond that there is this emptiness which in no way has an opinion, a need, a want of anything. It's just here, alive, radical, free, experiencing.
Yeah.
How does that feel when I say it? There's some kind of blankness in the mind, kind of. And in the body?
In the body. When you began to talk, yeah, there was some, I don't know how to describe it, but certainly there was something. And then the mind began to drift off into like some vagueness, like you're talking about, it's becoming hard to follow.
Dear.
But right now, this vagueness seems to have dissipated.
And here we are, but there's a live presence that's here, that's not separate. So the mind says, I'm separate from Lisa, she's speaking to me, she's going to give me something. And then the actual experience is there is speaking happening, there is hearing happening, there is life happening to no one. And there is no point where you are hearing, where you are seeing, where you are feeling. And there is this other in which you feel, see, or hear. There is simply this, what is, that's happening. And what normally happens for a lot of the time is the mind is either in the habit of going off longing for things or trying to avoid things, or there is an emotional discomfort which propels the mind into longing for something or trying to avoid something. So we have an interaction and there is an emotional discomfort that happens in the body, and then that propels the mind into trying to avoid it or trying to get to something else. Or we're just by ourselves sitting quietly, and then the mind is in the habit of doing that. Like it just naturally it's naturally seeking in time.
Mm-hmm.
Like what it wants, what it doesn't want, what I've got to be, what I've got to get to. And it's a combination between the habit of thoughts and the habits of emotions and the identification with those. And the emotions are normally found in the chakra areas. I don't know, I'm not an expert on chakras, like I don't know them in great depth. I just know them from my own experience. And if I feel out of control, then I feel it in my solar plexus. If I feel fear, I feel it in my lower belly. If I feel heartache, I feel it in my heart. If I feel like I can't say something, got too much emotion, I feel it in my throat. And then my head could be like blurry thinking or too much heady stuff. And then the top of the head is the disconnection from something bigger. And when they get triggered into the negative, so out of the positive. So when they're in the positive, the seeking stops because everything feels great. So when you're feeling happiness, when you're feeling connected, when you're feeling the joy of others, then the seeking stops and you don't want this moment to move. But a lot of the time when they get triggered into the negative, it's unbearable for someone to feel. Or it's not unbearable, it's that the person doesn't want to be that. So say if you're with your partner and you feel out of control with your partner, or you feel a lack of trust with your partner, then what happens in your mind is that is unbearable for your story of yourself. So you don't want to be someone that is feeling out of control or feeling like they don't trust, because you don't want that to be the image of who you are. And this might have happened at a very young age. So you then begin to seek to be something else. So you put on an act and try to pretend that you're not afraid, that you do trust. And then this seeking begins, this disalignment with yourself begins, and you begin to go into cut-offness and into this mental seeking. So then what might happen is you then might begin to, ironically enough, imagine having a different partner. And you might not notice that as seeking, but it is actually seeking. So you're imagining having a different partner. If my partner wasn't like this, if my partner was better, if my partner was more this or more that. But actually what happens if you go back to the moment is there is these feelings being ignited in the body of lack of trust or a sense of out of controlness. And those are just very basic human feelings, and there's nothing inherently wrong with them. It's just that we're ashamed of them, or we feel like we can't be them, or we feel unsafe in being them. So we make up this imaginary self, and then we go into a lie of being someone that is strong, that is confident. And then you could over-erect yourself in certain situations. You could go in situations and be over-trusting or overpowering or over-controlling in order to not be what you are in that moment, to not be vulnerable to what's happening. So that's how the sense of self happens. And what happens for a lot of us in waking up is coming back more and more to this authentic, childlike way of being and letting go of all these ideas of who you have to be. I suppose that's what the ego is called, or what a lot of people call the ego, of this idea of yourself. And it doesn't mean getting rid of these natural human basic feelings. It's not running away from it anymore in imagination, that if you get a better job, if you were stronger, if you changed partners, if you had a bigger house, if you had more money, if you lived in a different society, it's the running away from all these mental ideas that create this mental seeking, and just coming back to the vulnerability of what you have now which might be fear. And if you can really meet that fear, then you also are aligning with beingness as well. So you can have this expansiveness, this wholeness, this freedom, and then you can have a human that feels afraid. Or you can have a human that feels out of control. Or you can have a human that feels shame. But if you go into the story of trying to be something else than what you are, then you go into seeking land and you're lost in time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very organic and it's very natural for these bodies to feel these like basic feelings. If you see what I mean, that this is part of being a mammal, to have these feelings, and they're meant to be there for a reason. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. It seems that this pretending and trying to be somebody or something other than I am, it's not, can't say this is strong in me. I mean, I'm getting more and more natural and have no problem with how this human thing expresses itself. And can say there is seeking also. Certainly there's no seeking for like material things. And as far as awakening is concerned, I can say there is like active seeking. There is understanding that this is what is this shift is supposed to happen sooner or later. So I'm just listening to teachers like yourself, trying to get to the mind to focus on that more and more. And redirect it, you could say, as they say in Advaita, to the source.
Nice. Oh, it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wish you all the best with everything.
Thank you.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, Brian, I call you. Yes. So as not to shock him.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Brian.
I didn't know that was coming.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. Yeah, let me just take a moment.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
So I wrote my question down just to make it like poignant. So I noticed this like during the talk as well. With most of your talks, at the beginning, I'll feel more and more like expansive and more relaxed. And towards the end of it, I start to contract and feel uncomfortable in my body and hold on to things, and thoughts are happening and everything. And so my question like relates to that. It's just, how might this addiction to suffering due to familiarity stop? There's often this expanding, and then something goes back to contraction, because even if it's pleasant to expand, it's not like familiar. So it just like goes back to its old habit of being like, no, 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 you know? And this is happening like in my life, like constantly as well. And I feel like it's just an addiction. It's like, oh, the mind is going like, and yeah, it's out of habit. It's out of familiarity. Yeah. So how might that stop?
Yeah, the most truthful thing that I can feel in this moment is I don't know how that might stop.
Right.
At some point it will stop. Hang on, sorry, I just knocked everything over, so I just have to check that it's all back in play. Yeah, so I don't know how it will stop. It will stop the way it stops, which is completely undeterminable now, because we're here, and this moment doesn't give us anything but this moment. The future is nothing, the past is nothing, and actually this moment is nothing. So it's like completely unseeable as to what might happen or might not happen. Here we are, and that's the same all the time, is that we only have this moment appearing. Just this, and we don't know the past, we don't know the future. It's so beautiful.
So it's like fear of the unknown.
Totally. We're suspended in the middle of the unknown. It's like life is just the most amazing teacher when you really think about it. What life expects us to do is to live in complete mystery with all these apparent things happening. So it's like we're always really with complete mystery. We don't know what the future brings. We don't really know what the past was. We don't really know what's happening now. And yet things keep moving, like a kaleidoscope keeps moving. So all these different things keep being presented. And that's the challenge, is to completely surrender to it. Like all types of things could happen. Like the Amsterdam could blow up tomorrow. You know, like you could get $1 million. Like the internet could collapse. Societies could collapse. We're in such a weird thing at the moment with the lockdown. Like all different types of things could happen. And then on the personal level, all types of things. Your family could just suddenly disappear. Like it's unlikely that happens because society is set up in quite a safe way. But
Right.
really, like, we're suspended in the middle of nowhere, and the person is always trying its best, like with all its tentacles, to try and hold on to things, to make something familiar out of what is. And it's natural that that's what the human being does, otherwise the humans would all be in chaos. But in this moment, that's the reality of it. We're in absolute mystery and absolute wonder. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know what the past is. We don't know who we are. We don't know what's happening. We just know it is. And there's not even a we. There is simply what it is happening. And the more that there can be a surrender into that mystery of who you are, and less of attachment to the person that needed to know something, then there's more freedom. I don't know how or why that happens. It appears to be the spiritual path that happens, but who knows in the end? It's a happening. It's madness. It's all madness. And in 100 years' time, in this apparent dream, it will all be absolutely irrelevant. Everyone you know really will have passed.
Yeah, and I notice everyone around me like wants to know, you know? They want to,
Yeah, it's attachment
and
to...
I just don't.
Yeah, it's attachment to the human form, like, because the natural instinct of the body is to make security, and that's really okay. I'm not suggesting you don't do that on the human level, but it's just that that's not really your security, and that's not really your knowing. It's just that's the function of the human, like it is the function of the squirrel to gather its nuts. The function of the human is to be safe within its society. But it's not your real freedom. And it's not truth in any way. Like, really, we're just in mystery. We're suspended in the middle of nowhere, just dangling. Like, here it is. And it's so free, and it's so wild, and it's so innocent. And it's absolute mystery. It's absolute unknownness.
And there's some, like, I feel like something in the body, like, especially like in my belly, like contracts, like, when you speak about the unknown. So I think that's, and I feel it too when I'm speaking to other people. Like sometimes I just feel it in the throat now too. I just don't feel like speaking to the person, or like I don't know what to say, you know? I'm like, I don't know, like I don't know what to say to this person either. Like I don't know what they want, or and it's not really a question in there, I guess. It's
And
just hard to navigate like that.
Yeah, and that's also being human. Like, I have that same thing with humans. Like, there's times when I don't know what to say, and there's complete awkwardness, and I can't understand people's motives, and we get into complex conversations or arguments. Like, it's just part of being these things called humans, and that's part of relating and relationships. But we're so screwed up by it because we get so into it. Like, we get so into that is some form of freedom, and it's just humans. It's so complex, communication. There's no perfect communication. We always get to this idea like, one day I will be enlightened, or one day I'll be free of this shit and I'll have the most perfect communications with people, and that's absolutely not true. There'll still be complex dynamics, because they'll still want one thing, you'll want another, and you'll both have different karmas, and then it will be uncomfortable and awkward, and then you'll make up or disagree. That's part of being these things that are complex. And you maybe gets better through for exploring this and getting to know yourself better. But the true freedom always and every moment is right here. That will be the way it is. And we need to go through these complex dynamics of people in order to form deeper relationships. We need to understand them. We need to see their barriers. We need to see our own barriers. That's what creates deeper relationships. But it's all nonsense in the end. Like, it's not going to give you what you truly want. What you truly want is this moment.
Yeah, I guess there's still some part of me that's like doing that seeking, thinking it's going to get to enlightenment. It's
Yeah,
sometimes really subtle,
yeah.
but, and it's, yeah, I suppose it's best to come back to I am in those moments.
Yeah, totally. So you're in a complex situation with complex dynamics happening, and then here it is. This is.
Yeah, the complexity is like people right now in my life constantly want to know, like, what are you going to do? What's your plan? What's your next step? What, you know, and I'm like, I don't know, guys. Like, and when I look at them, I like realize like they don't know. And if I ask the same question, they'd be like, they beat around the bush. It's like,
I would just be very humble though to it. Like, so what I used to do, because I got into the subject quite young like you, is that I would use all this non-duality stuff as an excuse to
yeah.
avoid all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like they ask that question and then you say you don't know, as if that relates more to truth. And it doesn't.
Right.
That's just a human dynamic. You don't know what you're going to do with your future. And that's okay. That's what's appearing. And they're going to keep pressurizing you to that because that's the way humans live, and also maybe because they're afraid and they're afraid for you and they want to know. But don't use non-duality to get out of it. It's just that you don't know. And just because the truth is not knowing, it doesn't mean that they coincide. It's just that on the human level, you don't know. On the absolute
Right.
level, you also don't know. And that's really okay on the human level, because as you begin to wake up, you get confused. But whatever you pick, it doesn't really matter in the end. Like, you want to pick that which resonates in your heart more, but it doesn't really matter. Like, it's the same presence, whatever you do.
Yeah, I guess ideally I'd like to trust and not have to figure these things out, right? Like,
That's most probably a human dynamic. Like, trust is our nature. And and most probably on the human level, there is, like, just from knowing you a little bit, like, there is a fear to trust. So there are two
right.
different levels. So spaciousness, like consciousness, is trust. Your life is trust. And yes, it would be good to get the human to be more open to trusting, but don't muddle those two up. So trust is this
Right.
moment, trust is spaciousness. And then the human in the heart or in the solar plexus, maybe that's where trust is. It can be different places, but maybe there'll be two. So there is like a closing to trust.
Yeah, I can feel that.
But the person doesn't trust. The person has been taught that life is untrustworthy, or the person has been taught that it makes wrong decisions, or it might make wrong decisions, and that it can't trust itself, or something like this, or afraid that it will make the wrong decisions. And that's in the human world. And that's okay.
Right.
You don't
That's the
necessarily,
chakras.
yeah, that's the chakras. And then it's just getting to know that. It's like, okay, so I was brought up with parents that taught me a lot of lack of trust. And that's something that I can expand through time. And that's going to affect my decision making. It's going to affect the jobs that I take. It's going to affect the relationships that I have. And that's human. And then there's this big trust that's beyond all of that. That's this presence, that's this I am. And you can hold them both simultaneously. You can have a person that is untrusting, and then there can be deep trust. What we're always trying to do is make the human person, so we're making the human trust. And I used to do that, and still most probably do muddle these up too now. Like when I was younger, I used to be in relationships that are untrustworthy, and I thought that it was my job to trust them on the absolute level.
Right.
But actually the relationship was presenting itself as untrustworthy. Like the relationship, like the person was doing things that were untrustworthy. But I thought at that time that it was my job to surrender into the bigger trust of life. Whereas on the
Right,
human
right.
level, I was getting like indications that this relationship wasn't trustworthy, and I wasn't responding to it because I was telling my human, but you've got to trust from life's perspective. And these are muddling these two different layers. So then it
Is that
created
seeking?
It's not necessarily seeking. Can be, can not be. It's it's just that the person is saying to itself, I've got to like trust when I don't trust. Like it can also be like so for example, it can be that you had untrustworthy parents, and then your parents were always insisting that you trusted them, so that you followed them even when you didn't feel safe. And so then it's just a habit that presents itself as an adult. It doesn't necessarily mean to be seeking. It can or cannot be seeking. It's just a pattern that's appearing. And it's just seeing that. And then what you can do is you can put yourself in untrustworthy relationships, like you did with your parents, say. You had untrustworthy relationships. You put yourself in that situation because that's what you're used to. And then you try to excuse it through non-duality.
Right. Well, I would say my pattern is like avoiding relationships with people or withdrawing from them oftentimes.
Yeah.
In order to prevent exactly what you're talking about from happening.
Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily need to be seeking. That can just be the pattern in which you were taught. The seeking is like maybe being unconscious of it and then like desperately believing that people are your suffering or something. But when you just see it, it's just patterns of the body. Like you had insecure attachment, so your defense was to not be attached to people. And it's just seeing that. And so what you want to do is you want to bring in slowly like really safe relationships for you that understand that. And just like have a gentle, and then when you close up, try to find someone that you can keep opening up to.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. What we often do is we then go to non-duality, and it's like, okay, this relationship's unsafe. I need to now go into non-duality, and it's okay for them to be unsafe. And so then we keep putting ourselves in relationships that are unsafe. And it's just seeing that that's the habit of the body-mind, and that you can change that. But that will be whatever you were brought up with in your childhood, there will always be a strong tendency towards that. But it's seeing that none of that is freedom. What is freedom is the I am, which is beyond all that.
And can I trust like that life knows how to unwind all this?
Yeah. Like on the ultimate level, like life knows how to unwind this. It created this and it unwinds it.
Right.
So whatever is given to you is the perfect opportunity to go beyond seeking, to go beyond dynamics, to go beyond karma. Like everything is a gift.
So if in a moment, like, if I'm speaking to a person, and oftentimes, like, when I'm speaking to a person, especially if they want something, like, I feel really uncomfortable. And maybe that's something in me also. Maybe I want something from them. I don't know. But it's kind of hard to, like, let go and trust and open to those feelings as I'm with that person. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, what does it make you want to do?
well, it makes me want to like run away and like end the interaction and like and be alone. Retreat.
Yeah, if it's a safe place, like I would try to articulate that, like, but to really taking responsibility for your feelings. So try to say, I feel insecure because I feel like there's something that you want from me right now, but really owning it. Like, so really owning your feeling. And then at the same time, like, so owning your feeling, feeling your feeling, and acknowledging that there is this I am now, that this presence that's totally free beyond that. But on the human level, like, the way to relate is to try to be more and more honest. And it's really hard. Like, I have people that I really struggle to be honest with, and then I blast people with too much honesty. It's hard to get it right. But what you want is to try to be honest about how you feel. And then if people can receive that, then, and you can keep doing that with someone, then you know that that's the friendships that you want to develop.
Right.
Like if they can keep holding you and not rejecting you and slamming it in your face and rubbing your nose in it.
Right.
Like if they can keep, and then also for you, like if you can keep doing that for another person, like keep going beyond. But that doesn't mean like going beyond as in like letting people to abuse you. There's also barriers, but it's also like seeing, can somebody present, you know, their feelings, and okay, we all get reactive, but also like being able to sit down and say I got reactive and go beyond that. And that's like how you build trust in relationships, but it's not easy. I mess it up loads of the time. But I'm learning more and more that that's where you want to head towards in relationships, and not mixing up with non-duality. Like I used to use non-duality to disregard people's behavior or my own behavior.
Excuse my own behavior all the time. I could see that. Okay. All right, cool. Thank you so much, Elisa.
Yeah, pleasure, Brian.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Yeah, lots of love to you.
Yeah, have a good night.
Thank
you. You too. Thank you.
Bye. Okay. As I put on my sun hat. Nice. So that's the end for today. Thank you, everybody, for being open, expressing yourself and asking questions. And I really appreciate you all. And I wish you a beautiful week. I shall see you next Sunday. Goodbye.